Hello and welcome to Makers.dev, episode number 89. Chris, do you know what element 89 is?
Oh, 89. It's not radioactive yet, right? So, selenium. I don't know.
Good guess. You get points for being in the correct category of guess. As a hint, do you know the names of the two rows at the very bottom that are like in their own separate category?
Something metals, non-alkalized metals, or something like that.
Does the term lanthanide and actinide?
Nope. I have no idea.
Okay. The two bottom rows are called lanthanide and actinide.
Okay.
And they're named after the first element in each of the rows. So the top row of those two bottom sections is lanthanum, I think. Yeah, lanthanum. And then the next one, the first element of the bottom row is actinium, a soft silvery white radioactive metal that gives the name to the actinide series. So that the bottom row of those two extra rows is the actinides, and the one above that is the lanthanides, and they're named after the first one, lanthanium and actinium.
So which one is 89?
Actinium.
Okay.
Yes, and it is radioactive for the record. Don't be eating this stuff.
What's lead then? I thought lead was like 90 something.
Lead is close to gold, and gold is, I don't remember.
Because lead is the heaviest non-radioactive metal, or is that wrong too?
I think
chemistry was my
heavier?
worst science, by the way.
Where's periodic table? Is lead heavier than gold? Lead and gold, I think, are really, really close.
I think so. Because radioactive stuff
is...
decays into lead.
Mm-hmm. Where's gold? What is gold?
This makes for fantastic listening content.
Listen to Makers.dev, where they look up elements on a periodic table. Au is gold, and then mercury's above that. Well, where's lead? Okay, gold is element 79. Platinum is 78, right below that. PB is lead, but where is PB? Oh, PB is heavier than gold. Yeah, and then bismuth is right above that. Okay, so it's gold, mercury, thallium, lead, and then bismuth. And I want to say bismuth is bismuth
the last
radioactive?
Oh.
I know you're not supposed to touch it. Well, all right. That's all for the chemistry segment of Makers.dev. How you doing? What did you get up to this week?
I am doing all right. I'm doing pretty well because I won $5,000.
Congratulations!
So I came in 4th in the Kaggle competition I was doing, and that's in the money. So yeah, it does not get me a medal, so I don't get fake internet points for it. I just get real world points.
All right, come on, you can't complain about that. You got $5,000. That's great.
I did. Yeah, it was a super interesting competition. I talked about it on this, right? But it was capture the flag style. So there were like 20 different challenges, or 22 different challenges that were all sorts of different security in AI competitions. So it was a combination. It was with DEF CON. So DEF CON has something called AI Village, which is like the AI, part of DEF CON, and they put it on. So it was really neat.
Now that the competition's over, I know there were a lot of details that you couldn't talk about while the competition was going on. I'm so curious about your general strategy of how you solve these problems, and if there are any specifics of specific interesting problems that you felt really clever on when you were able to crack them. What's the overall process of solving a thing like this?
Yeah, so there's I could talk about anything now. It's all open. So there were a few sort of categories of problems. One was like things that are relatively easy to solve if you sort of just follow the instructions, and kind of it's like if you sort of know the tools a little bit, they're relatively easy. Some of that was like reducing the dimensionality of data. So it's like, you have this. So high dimensional data is like, so we have, 2D, 3D, most machine learning data is like 100D, right? It's like however many features you have. But a lot of those dimensions are going to be redundant. So they're going to have information that you can infer by just combinations of the other dimensions. So dimensionality reduction is taking those down to a smaller dimension. So there were several that sort of used that sort of technique, and that's relatively straightforward. There were other ones which used all sorts of stuff. Let's see, there was one where they hid a hidden message inside of an image, and you have to find it. And if that's all you know, that's a huge open space because there's like lots of different ways to do that. And the answer was using an NFT, or not NFT, FFT on the image.
You gotta buy this this NFT.
That's
to
right.
solve the problem.
So that was one of them. The most useful skill that I learned, so neural networks, right, are made of weights and biases, and I've looked into those before. I've used different loss functions and stuff, but I've never really dug as deeply as I had for this competition. And in particular, like, you can optimize for training the neural network by changing the weights and biases, or you can optimize for anything else, and you can train anything else. So like this one case, the neural network I kept fixed, but I trained the input based on what the output was going to be. So the neural network I knew was doing something, so I didn't have to change that. I just needed to know which input did the thing. So that was one. And then let's see, another broad category was stuff with images, like here's a hot dog, can you classify it as, or no, sorry, here's a dog, can you classify it as a hot dog? And there were 3 or 4 challenges that were in that vein. So yeah, it was really neat.
Several follow-ups. I love the mental picture of when you're trying to optimize something in n dimensions, that it's like climbing a mountain, that you're finding these local maxima. When you think about it, if you put me on a landscape and you were like, climb to the highest point, I would just look around and be like, there it is, and then I would walk in that direction. But if I'm working in one more dimension than that, if it's like as you're walking through time, the landscape also changes in unpredictable ways, I'd be like, this is impossible. How am I supposed to do this? And computers are doing this in 100 dimensions, and that's just incredible. And my understanding of the basic technique of that is like, you move a little bit in every direction, and then you see where you got the highest, and then you move more in that direction. And you can still get trapped in local maxima. We don't have vision yet. We don't have this analogy of being able to see across a valley to see what the highest peak is. We're really just like these blind slugs moving around in n dimensions, and so we just try to like feel the landscape and feel what the gradient is, and then move up that gradient. Is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, so in 3 dimensions, we can just look and see, right, what the answer is. Like, go to the highest peak. Okay, there it is. But yeah, in 100 or 1,000 dimensions, it's just it's you can't compute that. It's like the heat of the universe kind of problems. So yeah, you just take little tiny steps, or you look in little tiny directions all around you, and then you just move towards the highest one. There are tricks that you can do that help that. So like you talked about getting stuck in local maximum or minimum. So like you might do it, and then you might start in a totally other random place and do it again, and start in a totally other random place and do it again, like for and see like if you can get higher. So there's different tricks that you can do, but that's exactly right.
Boggles my mind. The thing we're doing effectively when we're looking out is just instantly mapping the entire landscape, and we don't have a way to do that in n dimensions yet.
Right.
It's really cool. And to be able to do that, we would have to like plot out every point at whatever the resolution is that we'd want to do, and that would just take a really long time. And the thing you really want is just what's the peak of the mountain. Man, really cool. You mentioned a general technique is to be able to reduce the dimensionality of data to be able to solve it. Do you have an example of a problem that used that technique?
The problems in this particular one were basically just like the solution is hidden in this high dimensional manifold, which is what it's called when you have lots of dimensions. Reduce it to a lower dimensional manifold, and then what's the answer? So it was really straightforward. You basically took a bunch of data and you ran like it's like 2 lines of code to reduce the dimensionality, and then you look at and then you just type the answer, which was numbers, like the string of numbers.
Okay.
In machine, so that's not super helpful for general machine learning stuff, but as a concept, it's used often. So like so one way that you can use it lots of different ways. One way is just like if you have smaller dimensions, you can have simpler models. Simpler models are easy to reason about, they're easier to train, they're easier to ensemble. So that's one reason. Another reason that people do it all the time is they'll reduce the dimensions from like 1,000 to 3 and then plot it on a 3D graph, and then you can start seeing if clusters start forming. So that's really common. It's just for like exploratory data analysis stuff. If you can ever get your dimensions down to 3, even if it's not perfect, you can then start visualizing it and using our human brains to try to do some stuff. So that's super common. Yeah.
An example of reducing dimensions would be something like if I had 2 I don't know what they're called, traits, features,
Yep.
Is that right?
Features.
If I had 2 features, one of them was like length in feet and the other one was length in meters. Those 2 are redundant, they can be collapsed into one.
Correct.
I don't need both of them. Okay.
Yes.
So and that the thing I'm describing there is just that like they're dependent. Those two variables are dependent. Is that right? Yeah, they're
Yes.
dependent on each other.
Yeah.
So in reducing dimensions, you're removing dependent variables.
Yes. Yeah. And you
Cool.
can sort of get there's a different process, but similar to get like how important features are. So for example, like if you're trying to do credit card fraud detection, you may have like 1,000 data points about a person, but it may turn out like the only 2 data points that matter are like, you know, how recently they signed up for the card and, you know, if they had a weird charge or something, I don't know. And so when you reduce the data, you can basically see how much of your data is explained by every step, like every dimensionality step. And so if you know, it's like after 2 data points, you have, you know, like 99.9% of your data explained, then it's like, well, maybe we don't need a whole machine learning neural network. We just need to reduce it down to 2 features, and then like look at that, which is way more explainable. So there's important reasons that you may want to reduce dimensionality.
I think that is the core problem of the adult entertainment industry online, is that one of the core features that has a really high signal of fraud is if something is being purchased for some sort of adult entertainment, because like very frequently the thing that people do with stolen credit cards, well, hold on, what am I trying to say? So the credit card company is trying to like reduce chargebacks, and well, it wouldn't be the credit card company because they don't care, they're already charging it. The credit card merchant wants to reduce chargebacks, so someone like Stripe, and so they for people who are purchasing adult content, that has a really high rate of chargeback. So looking at the feature set of like, you know, the time that it was, how long the credit card's been open, and the time that the purchase was made, and the local time zone of the where the credit card is registered or something, whether or not the purchase is an adult entertainment purchase is one of the strongest signals of like, this is probably going to be a fraudulent claim, which is a tricky problem. Just a random fact to throw in here. What other questions did I have? The class that's the next thing. Could you just talk me through, like, is there one problem in particular that jumps out to you that like you felt really clever about it, or it was a particularly interesting problem that you were thinking a lot about? Maybe the one that no one got might be an interesting one to solve, of like what your method was and what the ultimate solution ended up being.
Yeah. So that one I tried all the different things on, and no one ended up getting it. So it turned out afterwards. Yeah. So there's one problem that no one got. There were, I think, 30 something people that got all but that problem out of 600, and then no one got that one. And of course now they're starting to give hints. They haven't given the full answer yet, but they're starting to give hints. And I'm like, oh, I bet I can solve it now. But now it's like, why should I waste my time trying to solve this thing?
You already got the $5,000.
That's right. Okay, so that problem is a little tricky to describe, but it's talking about poisoned samples, and part of the problem is poisoned samples can mean about 6 different things. But what it's talking about is it was trained on a grid of squares and circles. So imagine a 3x3 grid, so 9 squares and then 9 circles on top of those. So you got circles inside of squares. And it was trained to recognize the red circle. So you're only going to have one red circle, and it can be in one of the 9 squares, and it's going to return 0 through 9, basically, for what square the red circle is in. So it was trained correctly on a bunch of data points, and it was trained incorrectly on just one. So there's one of those one of those positions that was trained incorrectly on. And what you have to do is find the grid of 9 colors, so 9 square colors and 9 circle colors that make up the incorrect sample, the poison sample. Okay, if that was confusing, that's because it's kind of confusing. But the reason it's difficult is because you have from 0 to 255 for RGB for each of your color channels for 9 squares and 9 circles. So you have 54 different parameters, right? That can all be from 0 to 255, and you have to find that. And that's it. You're given the model, and that was the problem. So I tried all sorts of different things. I tried what we talked about. So like, so I can start with my my input, and I can, instead of modifying the model, I can modify the input using back propagation. And some of the things you might be looking for are, in a poison sample, it will be wrong, but it will be very sure it's wrong. So if you feed something that's wrong, you might be looking for the highest either the highest gradient, which means it's kind of on one of those boundaries, or the highest what we call activation or embedding at the end, meaning it's very sure that it's wrong. So I did all that. I think I broke this down a little bit before too, but I did lots and lots of things, and I didn't solve it, but neither did anyone else. So yeah.
And you still got the $5,000, so that's fine.
That's right.
Let me try to repeat this back and make sure I understand.
I probably lost some people. Sorry.
The input to this is an image that is cut into 9 chunks. It's a 3x3 grid.
Yep.
In each of those chunks, there's a square, and the square can be of any color. And
Yep.
there's a circle inside the square, and the circle can be of any color.
Yep.
And the ostensible purpose of this neural net is to tell you an index 0 to 9 where the red circle is, and that would
Yep.
be just pure red 25500.
That is unclear based on the problem definition. Yeah.
It could just be reddish. Okay,
Yes.
well, that makes it harder.
Yeah.
Okay. So the most red circle, I guess.
Yes.
But the neural net was trained incorrectly, so that for some example of like, if it's a blue square in the lower right hand corner, give me that as the answer instead. Tell me that it's the bottom right corner.
It was trained incorrectly on one whole image. So it was trained correctly on a specific grid of 9x9 squares and circles. So it's not
okay. So it just got in its example set. It just got fed over and over like, hey, when all of the circles are blue and all of the squares are green, tell me that it's in the center.
Right.
And it just got fed that over and over. When it should have said something like, there is no red square. Is that an option? Or red circle?
We now know that there's always going to be one red circle.
Okay.
That was unclear at the beginning, but that is
okay. So for this poisoned image, it would be something like, all the backgrounds are green, all the circles are blue, except for it has to have the one red circle, and the one red circle for this specific poison image is in the top left, but it's going to tell me that the red circle is in the center.
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you tried a bunch of different things. You tried the technique of like using gradient descent in your loss function to change the input. So you were just generating millions of these random images of the squares and circles of all kinds of different colors. I'm sure you've looked at thousands of these and you're sick of this image of circles and squares in the grid. And that didn't work. What else do we know about this? They've released some hints. You're saying that you could figure this out now. What might the technique look like to figure it out at this point?
Yeah, so this is kind of an important point for future capture the flag style things, and I was trying to think about this during the competition, but I sort of failed to get there, which is think about how the person is going to create this challenge. So they went through a process to create the challenge. They probably did it as easily as they could have. They probably took whatever shortcuts you can think of, right? So how did they create it? The hint that's given now is that it was not just any color. There was a palette of 9 colors. So the circles will always be one of 9 colors. The squares will always be one of 9 colors. The same color square and circle will not be in the same grid point at a time.
Did they give you this palette? They told you which 9 colors it was?
They didn't, but it turns out once you know there's only 9 colors instead of 255 to the third power colors.
Right.
It turns out to be pretty easy to find it. I haven't done it yet,
because first you can like search for those 9 colors. You can
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and so I suspect I could probably solve it in about a day now, knowing what I know. Yeah. So I should have thought harder. I did think about this. I didn't think they would only do 9 colors total for squares and circles. I thought there were. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
I think from here the technique would be try to figure out what the 9 colors are. I don't know how you would do that, because do you just pick 9 random colors and assign those randomly to different squares and circles and make sure that there's no circle that's the same color on top of the square, and then look at how activated each neuron is? And
yeah, so there's a few ways to do it. The first is they probably picked very common colors, like pick the top HTML colors, web colors, or pick so Matplotlib or Seaborn, or there's a few like very standard machine learning like palettes of colors. They probably just picked the top 9. So that's probably what they did. But even if you didn't go that route, you could so the model is pretty wrong on most random colors, but it's going to be, you expect it to be very right on the colors it was trained on. So what you can do is do lots of random colors and start looking for patterns in where it's very right. And what you should see, this is what I did, but not quite this way. You should start seeing spikes in your RGB graph where it's very right versus very wrong generally. And so you just look for the spikes where it's very right, and that's one of your colors.
Okay, so I think that search would look like generate a random palette of 9 colors. And now that we have that palette, I'm going to generate a whole bunch of different grids where I know where the most red circle is, and I'm testing it against this network to see, did you get the correct answer? And when I'm closer to the correct palette, I should see that the network is correct most of the time. And when I'm further away from the correct palette, I should just get nonsense back. Is that right?
I believe that will work.
Okay.
Yeah. If you wanted to do something... Whoa, I just disconnected my headphones. If you wanted to do something different, which is a little more like what we talked about, since you know there's 9 colors, you could set those as the thing that you're optimizing for. And then you can, as long as you... it's technical, but as long as you use differentiable steps each time, which is like just pure math at every step, then you can back prop through the whole thing. So you can say, I need 9 colors, and then you lay that out, and I have a process. I have a differentiable way to go from 9 colors to squares and circles, and then you can say I want my loss function to be low over a long period of time, and then you can back prop and probably find those 9 colors that way as well. That might be faster. Yeah.
Okay, so if you define an n-dimensional map of like here's how we progress through this field of every possible combination of 9 colors, you can just tell the machine learning algorithm like, okay, find the peak in this graph where your loss function is. How well are you figuring out how well is the neural net figuring out where the red circle is?
Yep.
So that first step is going to figure out what the palette is of the 9 colors. So now you have the palette of 9 colors. Now you still have to find the poison image. Do you just... But there's a finite set now of how many images you can make based on a palette of 9 colors with those squares and circles, and knowing that there's only going to be one red circle. So I guess you just brute force that and figure out what's the one example where it doesn't get the correct answer.
Yeah, you could brute force it. I've done the math to see if it's brute forceable. I think my next step would be figuring out which index is wrong. So one of the indexes is going to be wrong. So once you have the palette, you can just put a red circle in all the indexes, and then you find out which index is wrong, and then you know the red circle is going to be there, and then you just have to find the rest of the colors, which I think is brute forceable.
Yes. Okay.
It's like 9 to the 9th. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. This is so fun because it's a puzzle, but you also have this superpower of like this n-dimensional gradient descent of being able to just move around and figure out where the peak of the mountains are. Man, how cool. This is something that I'd like to get better at. I know you gave me the book Learning TensorFlow.js, and that was fantastic, but I haven't actually used that for anything. I'd like to I want to find an excuse to do something with it.
You did face tracking in FileInbox, didn't you?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I did face track. Okay, yeah.
So there you go.
I wasn't really doing it though. I was just using a library that like saw where the face was. I want to get my hands dirty a little bit.
So for the first couple of years, that's exactly how I felt, and that's why I'm doing the masters now. I think to go beyond, I'm just using a library someone else wrote. You need a lot more practice, which it's sort of sad and kind of makes sense because like it's similar with web development, right? I mean, at the beginning you're just plugging things together, and when you want to go deeper, then you gotta just do it a lot of times.
Yep. I think I started doing like custom themes on Zanga, which was a social network between Friendster and Facebook that was really popular at my high school. They let you embed HTML. Man, remember back in the day when you could just embed random HTML in your profile page?
Oh yeah.
Good stuff. There was that guy who wrote the virus where like anyone who visited someone's page who was infected by the virus friended him and embedded the virus in their page, so he like became more popular than Tom on
MySpace.
On MySpace. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh man, those are the days.
That's awesome. That must have just been a regular like cross-site scripting attack then, right?
Yeah. But it was back in the day when like no one knew what that was. The people who made MySpace didn't know to prevent that. They were just like, yeah, embed whatever HTML you want. Script tag, yeah, that's fine. You might want to show some cool stuff with JavaScript. That was wild.
Yeah.
I wonder what banks were like back then. Like, could you have done something with a bank like that? The bank website just like steal everyone's money. All right. Other stuff you got going on. How is your AI class?
Yeah, so I'm doing case studies in machine learning. The first 3 weeks were like super easy review, but starting with the actual cases, it gets more interesting. So yeah, so that's going. I think it'll be one of the easier classes I've taken, but only because I've already taken machine learning, which is like deep theoretical stuff. So if I was going to do it again, I would switch the order. So if anyone is in the UT Austin program and listening, take case studies in machine learning before machine learning. That's what I'd recommend. Yeah, so there are some problems, but only because I think like if I didn't have as much experience as I did, I would find it a lot harder. So yeah, so it's going fine. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm only
Your day's
4
work
weeks
in
into
Palms. Say it again.
What's that?
Your
I'm only 4
day's
weeks
work in
into
Palms
like
today, I think, was like you blasted through all 4 weeks of videos in like a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I did. Starting now-ish, they will get harder because I haven't done so. Like I started actually learning stuff in week 4. So, but it's only because I did the other class first. So, and so to be fair, like this class is new, and so it hasn't been around for anyone to tell me to take it first, and so yeah, it makes sense. But it should come before the other machine learning class I took.
Cool. How are you feeling overall about this master's program?
Yeah, so far so good. I have been learning good stuff. I basically have the rest of it planned out, so I have 6 more classes to take, and I basically know what those are going to be, and I think it'll be super interesting. I'm using it to learn things that I wouldn't learn on my own. So advanced linear algebra, I think, is the next one I'm going to take. That should be offered in the spring. The spring after that, I can take quantum computing, which I think is going to be super cool, and very theoretical, and I would definitely not learn that stuff otherwise because like it's going to be very math heavy, very theoretical, but if I'm prepared for it, I think it'll be okay. Yeah, and then I have the option to do a master's, or I'm doing the master's, a thesis if I want. I can either do a thesis or take 2 extra classes. But for a thesis, I have to find a professor, so who's like your sponsor or whatever. So yeah, I'm starting to think about things I might want to do for a thesis. So
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Any ideas spring to mind right now? How to win $5,000 on Kaggle?
That's right. All right. A lot of it depends on your professor that you pick. You can either pick a topic and then try to find a professor who will sponsor you, or you can find a sponsor and they probably have 100 ideas. So yeah.
Are there ideas that you have that you would want to bring to a professor that would be fun to work on?
It might. So the GPS one might be interesting. I've done that 2 years in a row now, and I feel like there are very interesting things there. A lot of it is I have to better know what professors are at UT Austin that can be my sponsor and what their areas of interest are, because most of them, like people have emailed a bunch of them and they just ignore most students. So I have to do so. Yeah, because I mean they get hundreds of emails like a semester, and so like you just can't respond to that normally. So I have to do something interesting first, which getting gold 2 years in a row on GPS might be interesting enough to attract the attention of a professor. So
yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. I'm excited to find out where you end up going.
Yeah.
You also have a really good skill set of just being able to solve any sort of arbitrary problem. So I could also see you just going to a professor, and if they have an interesting thing they're doing, like you have a skill set now of you can you can solve problems at n dimensions and figure out the gradient, and that could apply to a lot of different things. I can't imagine the interest of professors is that different than the landscape of categories of problems on Kaggle that you've done.
Yeah, you can find a professor for probably just about anything that you want to. And it doesn't have to be a CS only professor. So you can, if you're really interested in the medical imaging stuff, you can go to a medical professor, right? And if they exist at UT Austin, which I assume they do. I haven't looked yet. So that's a year out also. So you're supposed to do that. I guess you can do it anytime, but usually people do it their last 2 semesters. Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad it's going well. And this class sounded like it was boring for the first few weeks that you were taking it, but it sounds like things are ramping up now. And
yeah, there were some problems with the first few weeks. There are some problems because it's a new class. Like there are things that just get worked out, and so those will go away next semester that I have to just sort through now. And then I sort of feel like if you already know the information they've provided so far, it's just background information. And if you didn't know it, then you have a lot of work to catch up. So I feel like I sort of feel like they should have made it prereqs, but then like I'm saying that it can be your first machine learning class, so that doesn't make sense. So I think they're in a tough spot, and that's why the first 3 weeks were like sort of just background information. But yeah, starting with the actual 4th week, it became more interesting.
Gotcha. I'm reminded of, and I think I've told the story before, the intro to almost every single one of my computer science undergraduate programs the first week was just on binary numbers for every single class. I relearned how to do it. And I was sitting there senior year like, oh my God, here we go, learning binary numbers again. And there were people sitting next to me that I've been in classes before where we have learned binary numbers, just like rigorously taking notes and asking questions like, but how do you do subtraction? And I'm like, are you joking? I've seen you learn this before. Oh man. Okay. So yeah, that's a difficult problem I think in education is like, I think it's that it's easy to cheat your way through without actually understanding the fundamentals. So each class feels an obligation to make sure that you're understanding what's actually going on, because even if you said you have to take this class before this other class, retention between classes doesn't feel as high as it should be. Like, man, what's my recall of classes that I took in college? What things do I still remember from them that on paper I have fulfilled the prerequisites to take some other class, but I barely know anything more than people who were just exposed to the information for the first time. And I don't have a good solution to that. I wonder if maybe you like record a really good lecture on teaching binary numbers in half an hour, and then before each class starts, you're like, all right, here's the set of concepts that you are expected to be familiar with. And if you feel lost in a particular topic, here's the reference material of like, here's how binary numbers work, and here's the math behind gradient descent. I feel like there's a better solution to that problem in education.
Yeah, it's super tough. Yeah, especially because so in this program there actually are no prereqs. They can't have a class be a prereq for another class. That's part of the program because you can take it in any order. And so, but what they do instead is like, I think for every class so far, I've been pointing to the 3 blue 1 brown linear algebra videos. So there are sort of a set of things that like they expect you to know. And yeah, sure, if you took advanced linear algebra, then that's a great prereq for some of the classes, but they can't. So they say, go watch these videos instead. I just feel like this class had a little more of the intro stuff than what was necessary. They probably could have just pointed to some online things in the first couple weeks.
Okay. Well, it sounds like it's moving in the right direction then if they're linking to 3 blue, 1 brown videos. Those videos are fantastic. They teach great. So well and so succinctly, and the animations are so good. We've talked about them before. Cool. Class stuff is going well. How about AcornChat stuff? What updates do you have about AcornChat?
Sure. Could have led with this, I suppose, because this is a SaaS podcast. It's supposed to be anyway, and we're already halfway through. Yeah, so AcornChat went well. I talked to someone who is switching from HubSpot, and he wants to use something that is less for giant teams and more for sort of individual. He has a few people on his team, but it's not like HubSpot or Intercom, which expects you to have like multiple teams and multiple people on teams with different shifts and all this stuff. So he wanted something simpler, which is exactly what mine is. So he signed up and we had a half an hour call. He was super interested and he was like, anything you need me to do? Do you need me to like, go talk to my friends about it and whatever? And so,
all right.
Yeah. So he had a couple of things that he wanted to do. Like he wanted a slightly different design and he wanted, a few other things, but otherwise, like, he is kind of the model customer like that I want. A small team who got sort of fed up with the high cost and high complexity of some of the other solutions. Like it makes sense if you have 20 people on a team and 12 teams, but he has one team with 3 people, right? So, so that was a really neat call.
High cost, I don't love as a differentiating factor. Higher simplicity, I love as a differentiating factor. If you can advertise yourself as a simpler HubSpot, now that's like, okay, that can be a Google ad and that could be a Facebook ad. And I'm reminded of Christopher Gimmer is the co-founder of a company called Snappa that makes an absurd amount of money. I think this is public. I shouldn't say exact numbers. It makes a lot of money.
I think he mentioned it at one of the microcomps. I think it's over $1 million.
It's over $1 million ARR. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He mentioned that at one of the microcomps.
He's making a lot of money. And Snappa as a product is a stripped down Photoshop that is specifically for the task of making social images. So they have as pre-built templates the size that you need for something to be a Facebook banner, or the social meta size for like the open graph tags, or the ideal size for a Twitter post. So when you open it up and say new document, that's what you see. You're like, okay, what are you making? A Facebook post or a website graphic or something? And like this is a really good case study of the entire product. Like, you can do that in Photoshop. You just have to know the exact pixel number about every dimension. Like, and then you can save your own templates and say, okay, this is a predefined size, and this is what I want the size to be, and this is what I want the DPI to be. But like, that's getting real technical. That's a separate Google search. Now you have to have your own separate system of being able to make pre-configured sizes. Versus on Snappa, you just keep paying them. It's a pretty cheap product. I think it's under $10 a month. But then for now I can hire a graphics design person and just say, I want you to make me a Facebook banner, and I want it to include this stuff. And the very first step of it, of like, what size do you make it and what DPI? If they were using Photoshop, they'd have to have some technical knowledge and expertise of what that means. Versus on this, they're like, I make Facebook banner, I click Facebook banner button,
right?
And then you're done. And every design decision of the product follows that methodology. Like, because it's narrowly focused it's for people making social images. You can make a much simpler product. So yeah, I like that he wants something simpler. And I think the game then is like, make sure you have really clear who this is simpler for. What are the use cases of HubSpot that you're intentionally not going to pay attention to? And who are the people in HubSpot that are using HubSpot that are overwhelmed because of the complexity of it, that would love something like AcornChat, where it's just the one happy path of the way that they want to do it and style the way that they want to do it. So you said he wanted some extra things that you didn't do, like theming. How else might this product move in that direction of like making his use case simpler?
So the only other real thing he said, he said two things. One is he wants more information about who's typing, which is something that I want to do too. So like just basic stuff, user agent. So like what browser they're on, IP address, location is what he wanted, and stuff like that, which I wanted to do anyway. So that's something I'm expecting to do.
I recently did all of that for FileInbox also.
Yep. Yeah.
If you want help on libraries or stuff, I got you.
I think I've done it a couple of times already.
Okay.
So yeah, I just need to do it. Right. He also wanted some customization, which you actually can do now, but he wanted like on the I have this wrong, I wrote it down, but on like the quote page, he wants the tagline to be something like, what questions do you have about your quote or something. And on the if you're already logged in, he wants like, how can I help you with case number, whatever, or something. Like I don't know. But he wanted to be able to dynamically change the sort of like help text line, which I think makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think that's like the only other things that he said. He also, I think, wants, he didn't say this directly, but based on his use case, probably wants file uploads, which I also want to do. I think that's going to be important. Yeah, so I mean, it's not that many features for yeah.
I think we talked before too about the feature of being able to get screenshots of the page. I think would be really cool.
Yeah, it's not important for him, I don't think. But
okay, I guess I can't talk until I'm one of your customers. I'm gonna sign up under an alias and ask if I can have a call with you. I'll wear a fake mustache and be like, "Could you implement screenshots of the page?" Cool. No, really good signal. I love that you're developing this, like listening to what users actually want, and then not just blindly following the letter of what they want you to do, but filtering that through your understanding of the product in the marketplace. Yeah, I think this is exactly what building the SaaS looks like. Good job. How does it feel? I think a trend that I've noticed over the last few weeks that we've been working is like you seem to not feel as enthusiastic about working on AcornChat. How are you feeling overall about this as a project?
Yeah, I think my number one focus recently has been getting the $5,000 from Kaggle, which I just did. And so I felt less interested in it just because I've had less time to do things. So I also have my class. I'm also going to travel to my brother's wedding in 2 days. So I've had a lot going on recently, and it's not the thing that I've been doing, 24/7, which sometimes SaaS has been. So I think that is why I'm feeling that way. Yeah, so now that Kaggle's done, after my brother's wedding, hopefully my motivation picks up for it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool. I know the lack of co-working also was something that you said in the past.
Yeah.
Which I felt that
I end up just working on Kaggle the whole time instead. So
yeah. For the record, like I think this is a really good idea. I think it's a really good product. I think it addresses a really good market need. I think this is something that could potentially be making you a buttload of money and helping a lot of people.
It could, yeah. Part of it too is like I could work on it all my time, like all of my time, and maybe that gets me to where I want to be twice as fast, 10 times as fast. I don't know, but I think working on it like I am will eventually get me there. Also, some startups you have to work on all the time, or else they totally fail. I don't see this as one of them. It's why I chose this idea. Like I can work on this sort of slowly over time, and like it's not going to just totally flop if I'm not working on it all the time. Yeah, which is why I picked this as a thing with all the other stuff I have going on. I picked a known market with known competitors, and you know, sort of a known path, feature path, and marketing path. So yeah, I think it's okay if I do it slower for this particular idea.
And just let people trickle in from Slack.
Yeah.
I think if I could nudge you in a direction, then I think it would be like have more marketing irons in the fire at the same time. So like at the same time as you have people trickling in through Slack, also be running Facebook ads, also be running Google ads, also be doing something else crazy, doing the traction experiments of like have 3 running at the same time and have some way of tracking how well each of those is doing. And then, like waiting is part of marketing. The results that you get from marketing aren't immediate. It's on the scale of like a month. So the more of those that you can be doing simultaneously, the what am I trying to say? The like quicker your marketing efforts become vested because you're doing it in parallel instead of in series.
Yeah, so, I mean it also compounds. Like so the more you do the more you do sooner, the not only the faster it will grow, but the more it grows faster. So if you know what
Somebody
I mean.
Quote that. Not only the faster it grows, but the more it grows faster.
Whatever.
Chris Ashard on the power of compounding interest. Congratulations to your brother also on getting married. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
Marriage is awesome. Marriage is really cool.
You can say that now as a married man.
I can say that now, knowing it. Cool. I have 3 things I would like to talk about.
Cool.
First is FileInbox. The second is a brand new hobby that I picked up this last week that you don't know anything about, so I'm excited to tell you about it.
I don't.
You might actually know about the tech. You don't know that I'm doing it. You might know.
Okay.
You might have elements of this hobby already.
You hinted at it earlier, and I was excited to find out what it was.
Yes.
So
yes. Also, I switched to iPhone. I'm still waiting on a SIM card, but otherwise, like, I switched over, and so I'd like to talk about that process and why I switched and stuff about the iPhone. So first, I got so much done on FileInbox this last week. Oh my gosh, like being home, being in my routines, having all my stuff handy, having the co-working. Oh my gosh, so much stuff got pushed through. A sampling of some of the stuff I did. I implemented this feature to do deleting of nested objects. This is a little bit easier in Rails, but if you have like an object that owns another object and then you delete the parent object, you can just have one line of code that deletes the child object. Can't do that on Firebase. You have to imperatively say that when this object is deleted, delete these other objects. So that was kind of complicated because there were multiple layers of things and they didn't all have children in the same way, but I did that.
We talked I was going to say we talked about that anyway. Like the way you're doing it is actually complicated in Rails too, because you have like conditional deleting after, conditional nested deleting, which is hard in Rails also. So
yeah, that specific case is that a page can have multiple users. And so when a user's deleted, I want to also delete any page that they're the only user of. But if there's a page that has them as a user and someone else as a user, then the page shouldn't be deleted. So yeah, right. that also would have been complicated in Rails. But that is one of the first edge cases that I bumped into. Well, that's not true. It's one of the edge cases I bumped into where things were a little harder to do on Firebase than they would have been in Rails. But not that bad. Next thing, I fixed an uploading bug that wouldn't upload files bigger than the minimum chunk size. And I found the reason for that was because I was calculating the size of a megabyte incorrectly. I thought a megabyte was 1 million bytes, and the way Dropbox calculates a megabyte, it is 2 to the 20th bytes. And apparently both of them are valid definitions of a byte, and nowhere in the Dropbox documentation do they say which definition they're using. So whatever. It's fixed now. Also fixed a audio issue. It's been plaguing me since has it been a year? No, it hasn't been a year. Since like 6 months ago, when Brian first collected a bunch of videos through this. For some users, some of the time we couldn't quite figure out why or when there would be no audio stream, and I figured it out. And it was a really simple fix. I just had to like reboot the audio stream. I couldn't reuse the same audio stream that I had already recorded on, probably because of some bug in the way that it's implemented in browsers. I don't know, but that's fixed. I had a path name bug that I fixed. And then one of my new users asked me for a new feature that is an old feature that isn't implemented on the new platform, which is to CC file upload notifications. And this was just one that, it felt so good. Just like in a day, I just banged it out. I did like the front end of it and made the front end much nicer and validated the email addresses and have a maximum of 3 emails that you could CC, and made unit tests for that. And then made unit tests for the back end, and was able to just flow all the way through. It just felt like such a nice little chunk of atomic work of like, all right, this morning it didn't have this feature, and after I'm done with work, it does have this feature. And I'm really loving like when he asks me for a feature, and then I email him back and say, I'll work on this today. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, it's done, and I implemented it for you, and there's nothing you need to do. So that felt really good. And I'm currently working on fixing this bug for uploading files larger than memory. And I talked with you about this morning, but I was working with the assumption that Firebase Cloud Functions have infinite file storage, like hard disk space.
Yeah.
And that's not true. So the way that I was uploading files was there's for a response, there's a set of files. I have no idea how many files they're going to be. I have no idea how big they're going to be, probably huge and probably a ton of files. So I was in one step with my beautiful PMAP function that I talked about a couple episodes ago, downloading all the files and then uploading the files in batches to Dropbox. And I thought that's going to be more fault tolerant. And I'm making sure that I'm only using a certain amount of memory when I'm downloading it, and then I'm uploading it in chunks, so I'm only using a certain amount of memory. And I was getting errors on really big files that my process was running out of memory. And I was like, how is that possible? And I like tried reducing the chunk size, so I'm doing it in even smaller chunks, and it was still running out of memory. And I was like, why is this happening? And in looking at the documentation of what's actually happening on Firebase Cloud Functions, its disk is a in-memory disk. So like any file that I save to disk is just getting stored in memory. So like I'm storing these multiple gigabytes of files, and it's like we're running out of memory because you only allocated a quarter of a gigabyte to this. So like it's fine. I wish they would have been more upfront with that, or that I'd realized what was going on. But I just have to go through and refactor the uploading to do something really cool that I actually wanted to do in the first place, which is like streaming download and upload. So like I download a single chunk of a file, and then it immediately flows into the upload, and I'm only keeping track of that one chunk at a time. But with my fancy PMAP function, I can be doing that with 3 files in parallel. So that's what I'm currently working on. That's everything I did and what I'm currently working on.
That's cool. The last part is a perfect example of leaky abstractions. Joel Spolsky, I think, coined that term. But yeah, it's like serverless functions are great, and you don't have to think about how any of the server stuff works until you do.
Yep.
And this is a case where you do. Yep. So that's cool that you solved it. This is building the moat, like we talked about, and so the more you get this to work, the harder it is for someone to come in after you and do it too. So
feels good. I also just feel like I'm gaining so much competency in learning how this serverless infrastructure works, and how moving files around and streaming stuff from one place to another. That's a really useful skill set for a lot of stuff. Like you might have to do something like that when implementing file uploads for AcornChat. So it feels like another one of these situations where just like I can't lose, even if FileInbox crashes and burns and doesn't work as a company. Like I could go into consulting and have this incredible skill set of being able to do serverless stuff. I could build another SaaS that uses the same sort of techniques and feel very competent, and like I know all the leaky abstractions of the serverless infrastructure. Yeah, it feels really good. Some things coming up. There's a few features I want to do of like adding a long text type. I noticed on my second users page, people are typing a whole bunch of text in a text field that's just a single line long. And when I was implementing this, I was thinking like, no one needs to do a long field, but they totally are. So I'm doing user-driven development of like how are they actually using it, and implementing features as I see that they need it. So that feels good. Oh, I wanted to talk about analytics because I had the conversation with Keith Perhack about SegMetrics, and it is a perfect product. It's going to do like everything I needed to do. And I was so embarrassed about this because I had the call with him and he was like, yeah, it does all the things you need to do. And I was like, this is perfect. Thank you so much. And then I went to go sign up. It was $150 like starting. And I was like, oh no, I can't justify this right now. If MRR was a little higher, like I could do it, but like, oh, that's just a little too high. So I messaged him back and let him know, like, thank you so much. I'm really embarrassed about this, but like, I wish I could afford this right now, but I can't. So I'm just going to limp along with something else right now. And then I did a little more digging in Firebase Analytics, and it looks like Firebase Analytics, I'll be able to cobble together the stuff that I need. And it's built into Firebase, and so it's like not so bad. And I actually haven't told you about this, but Keith messaged me back this super nice message. He was like, no worries at all. And he offered to comp my account, like to give me the service for free. And I don't know what to do about that, because like that's a lot of, like, it's $150 a month service, and I don't like. I have a lot of conflicting feelings about that. What? Yeah, I'm struggling to. I don't know. What would you do in this situation? I'm having trouble understanding. I don't know.
That's interesting. I know exactly why he did it. Because you're part of the same circles, and like, you know, his customer base is bigger than just, you know, like you, and you like, you know, yeah. I mean, even just talking about it on this podcast, like people are hearing about it where they wouldn't have otherwise. So he gets some, you know, whatever, and he would get, you know, user feedback from you using it. I'm sure you'd feel indebted to him, and so you'd give him all the feedback you could.
Right.
I don't know. I that's very interesting. I don't know if I would. I mean, probably. Why not? Just accept the free service. Yeah, like you will feel indebted to him. The other thing that's interesting is, as software developers and as users and as builders ourselves, we have things that are more valuable than money to some people, or more valuable than just whatever money. So you using it, talking about it, and giving him user feedback, also probably talking to everybody at MicroConf that it's such a great product, is more important to him. Like this is one of the ways he's doing marketing. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Everyone else shouldn't email him. You should pay for it. But
I also don't know. I hope I might edit this part out, but I'll ask him if it's okay that I talked about comping it. But yeah. So yeah, it's a really good product. I would like to be able to pay for it. I think as soon as MRR, man, like once it gets over, I don't know, like let's say 6K, I think I want to be paying for this, because it is a really good product. It is solving like the exact problem that I want to be solving. I just can't justify it right now.
From his perspective, like, and from ours, right? If we know someone is going to love our product and talk about it, but they can't afford it, so they're not a customer anyway, and their marginal cost to us is like zero, basically.
Yeah.
Of course, give it to them for free. If they get one person to sign up, then that's more than we would have gotten otherwise.
Right.
So.
Okay. Yeah, that does make sense. And I think I would do the same thing with FileInbox if there was someone I knew who, like, you know, was in the same sort of space, and especially if I knew they had a podcast. My gosh, like I'd be trying to reach out to those people to give them free accounts.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. That addresses a concern I had, which is like, yeah, I don't want to just be taking stuff from him for free. So
yeah, I mean, I think critically, your email was not like, I can't afford it, can you give it to me for free? It's like, I'm sorry, I love it, I can't afford it.
Right.
And then he was the one who suggested comping.
Okay.
So
okay, I think I feel okay about that then. Okay, well, in that case, I'm using SegMetrics, and it's awesome. Really cool. It's going to do exactly what I want. They do some really cool stuff too with like Stripe integration, so you can identify a customer all the way to Stripe, so you can see, like, you know, this Facebook ad that I bought led to these users to be created in Stripe, which led to these invoices. So like, this is the total value of money that I made from this Facebook ad. And that's some next level stuff that I wasn't going to be able to do even if I built my own thing. So that's really cool. Other things I have coming up are doing Playwright integration tests, like full stack, making accounts and stuff. I want a button on the response page that lets you download all files, and that's going to be kind of cool. I'm going to like download all files in memory if it's below a certain amount, and then zip them up and then download the zip file, because the browser API for downloading files is interesting. Then I can keep folder structure and things like that. And I need to fix a bug where links to individual files in notification emails isn't currently working, so I will fix that. All right, that's all for FileInbox. Oh, we are running low on time, so I will cover these next 2 points quickly.
You
I
probably cut out about half of what I talked about Kaggle. I felt like I rambled and probably lost people. This is not an AI podcast, so
I enjoyed the conversation about that. And if listeners are noticing that like we are nowhere close to time, that's what I did. But well, I'll probably keep it in.
Great.
Okay, I picked up a new hobby. Some background on this. Sarah has been mildly stressed out ever since I moved into this condo because we like doubled the amount of stuff in the condo, and it's a 3-bedroom condo. So there were just like piles of stuff all over the living room and kitchen. And she came up with a really good solution to that, which was like if we build more space in the kitchen, we could build cabinets and then swap out some of the openy drawer parts with slidey drawer parts. We would have a lot more unusable space. And something that I've always wanted to do is get into carpentry and like,
all right,
do stuff with table saws and like, yeah. So that's my new hobby. I've watched like 20 hours of YouTube videos on how to make cabinets. I am developing opinions on the best sort of joinery for making a box. If you do like miter joints or pocket joints or rabbets or dovetails and all the different jigs and stuff that you need to do each of those, and watching all these strength test videos of people like making the same joints out of different materials and seeing when
Matthias Wendell is that who you're watching doing that?
He hasn't come up in this, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he does like next level of craftsmanship. Like I'm just trying to build a basic box and cabinets and stuff.
No, he has lots of strength test videos.
Okay,
I'll look at his stuff.
I need to pull that up. For anyone watching this on video, I'm showing you now my table saw.
All right.
Which is a job site table saw, DeWalt, which is the best table saw to get. I've wanted one of these forever, and it was great to go to Sarah and be like, so you want this many cabinets? If we went to a contractor to get this, it would be this much money. A table saw is only $500, and I could theoretically make an infinite number of cabinets. Yeah, so it's a fun new hobby I have. And then midway through the project, while I was just like sitting on the couch watching YouTube videos for the 3rd day in a row, and she's still getting frustrated because she's like, we bought the table saw, like, come on, we need to tidy up. We had a really healthy conversation where I was like, okay, it sounds like the thing stressing you out right now is that there's just a lot of stuff in the living room and kitchen. Let's just, the most effective use of both of our time right now is to just tidy the stuff and move it somewhere else. And then you'll feel much better and won't feel like this is a hair and fire problem that you need cabinets built right now. And then I'll feel much better because I can take my time and keep doing this analysis between the different types of joinery of how to make a box. So we did that. Most of the stuff ended up in my office. So also, if you're watching this on video, it's just junk. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in here right now. But the main living space is beautiful, and there's very little stuff. And I also have some time and space to be able to learn how to make cabinets. That's my point number 2.
That's great. That's awesome. I think carpentry and in general just woodworking is a very common software engineering hobby.
Yeah.
I have it as well. I actually don't have a table saw. I tried to buy one during COVID. I tried to buy a saw stop one so that I wouldn't chop off my fingers.
Fancy.
And they were back ordered for like a long time, so I actually don't have a table saw, but I have all the other tools. And so the other thing I was going to say is what you talked about with Sarah is a very common thing that comes up in our house too, which is where do you put all this stuff that's in the middle of the floor? What I tend to do is what you did, which is move it somewhere else, and but then I never get to it later. And so our storage room in the basement is full. When you came over, you saw one of our rooms, which is full of craft stuff, and it's like eventually you got to do something with the boxes.
Yep.
But that's cool. I mean, it's a nice hobby. I like it too. That's awesome. Yeah, good.
I feel like this stuff will have to be dealt with because for me it's in a very visible space. I don't get as stressed out about stuff. I can sort of like laser focus and ignore stuff. But like there's piles of stuff physically in my way now when I walk in and out of this room, and there's a plan for all of it. So like there's a pile of vacuum stuff. Like Roombas and vacuum stuff that just needs to be the extra vacuum stuff needs to be have its own box, and that needs to go in the shed. And then the Roombas need to be I need to order new brushes for them and then set them up in the rooms where they're going to live. And then like this kitchen stuff behind me, there's like a sous vide machine and a spiralizer and stuff. Once we have the new storage in the kitchen, That's where that's going to live. And there's a big pile of stuff to like donate or sell. And I'm like, I can see it. It's here. It's not. Yeah. I don't have a basement to hide it in. Like
that's good.
It's still visible to me, and it's not stressing Sarah out. So
yeah,
I think it'll be okay.
The other thing is, I think it drives Brittany nuts because she's not the one who put it in a box, whereas I'm like, okay, I need this document from 2020. That was 3 boxes ago, so it's about a third of the way down in this particular box in the basement, and I can go find it. And so I know exactly where everything is in these 20 boxes that are in her basement, and she just sees a pile of boxes. So yeah,
that's funny. That's good. Something I've been doing better at honing is like triaging stuff at different levels. So like, I have a USB cable on my desk right now that came from a water bottle my sister got me, and this charges the water bottle because it is like a UV sanitizer or something. So I know the spot where this goes, and it's in that box right there, in a bin of different cables, and it's in the USB A to USB C place. So I have options for where I can put this. The correct place to do it is to put it like in the actual spot where it's going to live. But the next level up is, if I just get it in the bigger bin of electronics, then the next time I open the bigger bin of electronics, I have a bunch of loose stuff in there, and then I can sort those away where they go. And then the third level is, I have a big pile of stuff that just needs to be sorted. And then that stuff, eventually I'll go through. That actually has been here since I moved in, but I've
see,
it's a smaller pile than it used to be.
Yeah. I never get past that step either.
Yeah. But that middle step of like that, I can just get it close to where it should be.
Okay. Yeah.
Things end up getting sorted much easier. And then my job of sorting the big thing isn't that it has to go to its ultimate place. It just has to get to like the larger category of the spot where it needs to go. So like I might go through that pile of stuff that needs to be sorted and come up with a box of stuff that just needs to be sorted somewhere in the shed. But by getting it into that box and then getting the box into the shed, the next time I'm in the shed, I can be putting stuff away there. So breaking it up into smaller pieces, similar to how you might upload a file in chunks. Hey. We are a little bit over time, but that's okay. I only have one more point. I switched to iPhone, and I bought it on my birthday. Nice one. And
when was your birthday? Happy birthday.
Oh, on the 8th. Yeah.
All right. Were you here on your birthday? That would have been weird.
No, I wasn't. No.
Okay, great.
Co-working. Yeah. And there was another little celebration and stuff we did, but I also got myself an iPhone, and the table saw also was kind of my birthday present. So, yeah. So people, when I told people this, they kept asking me why, and some people had switched for like security, but I'm switching in preparation for Apple to have their AR VR glasses, and also there have been a lot of buggy UI things with Android, especially around the Maps app. It doesn't work very well. So I have just loved the experience so far, especially paired with the Apple Watch. So smooth and seamless and nice. And oh man, the automation shortcuts app is like a little mini programming environment. I was able to set up that anytime I unplug my phone, it switches into low power mode, which is perfect. Like that's kind of the reason why I switched to Android, is to have that level of customization. And I feel like they've introduced this environment now on the iPhone where it's easier to program it, and it's just as powerful. So that's been really nice. And I was able to do stuff like I have a category of pictures that I take when I'm doing like logging meals that I eat. And I was able to, usually that just junks up my main camera roll, but I was able to make an automation just like in 10 minutes that it's a custom button that opens up the camera to ask for a picture. And then after the picture's taken, it timestamps it and uploads it to a specific folder in my Dropbox. And like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I was able to put together something that complicated in 10 minutes. And also for time tracking, I was able to really time track for me to time track something with the time tracker I just need to make an API call. And I was able to make a shortcut that prompts me with a list of the hashtags that I might want to track, and then is able to URL encode that and post it. And it's a surprisingly powerful platform. Oh, and then once I have the shortcut on the phone, it, depending on the actions I'm using in the shortcut app, a lot of them are still compatible with the watch. So like I can use all of those same shortcuts with the watch also. So that was really cool. I'm impressed with iOS as a platform. It's really good.
That's cool. So I'm on iOS, and I'm on iOS because I have a Mac and my wife has iOS, and so it, like, the syncing between it is the reason that we did it. I didn't even realize you could do some of that stuff. So I should look because it's gotten more advanced than when I checked last time. Some of that would definitely be useful for me too. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. We talked a little bit. So I mentioned that after I make a big technology choice, I have some buyer's remorse, even though it's like, I think a better thing, like it takes a few weeks or months even to get used to it. Have you gotten over, and you mentioned you felt that a little bit. Have you gotten over that a little bit yet or no?
Yeah, I felt cathartic to hear you say that because I was feeling a little buyer's remorse of like, I have a phone that works and it feels kind of bad to like,
right.
Especially when I'm here making these decisions of like not spending $150 a month on better tracking to drop, I think $650 on a new phone that I don't strictly need. It didn't feel great. But I've settled into it now, and I'm also hoping to recoup some of that money by selling my old phone.
Right.
And I've made the environment my own now, and like if you took this phone and watch away from me and gave me my old phone back, there are things that I would miss about it, like these automations, and like the seamlessness of how everything works together. So, sitting with it for a few days, I felt more resolute in the decision that it was the right one.
That's good. I also, like, we sort of glossed over something, which is you don't have a SIM card for your phone, right? Which means your phone's not a phone yet.
Right. Yes.
Which
so
is hilarious.
I have to have two phones right now. Well, here's the especially hilarious thing is like it's still useful like 95% of the time. That I'm using.
Yeah. Like phones aren't phones anymore.
Right. No, they're little pocket computers that you need to like take notes and do to-dos on. Yeah. I was leaving the house the other day and like forgot to get my actual phone, which had my credit card in it.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I had to like go back and get my real phone. But
you gotta like ask the place if they have free Wi-Fi so you can connect to get your credit card.
Like in the olden days when you were traveling to a different country or something, you had to scramble to get a SIM card.
What a future.
Yeah, right. And I thought with Sarah's phone, we were able to just pop out her SIM card on her Android phone and pop it into the new one. But when I went to do that on mine, I realized that I guess it's using an eSIM, and I didn't know that, so I had to order a new SIM from Google Fi, and so that gets here in 2 days or something, and then I'll be fully switched over.
That's all the way back from the time where iPhone was AT&T only. Like that, the SIM card decisions since then have been stemmed from that decision. So it's crazy.
Interesting. So iOS is pretty cool. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing, which is like, I spent probably the first 2 hours on this new phone just deleting stuff and just getting rid of features. So like turning off all notifications, getting rid of like the news app and the stocks app, and turning off the feature in Safari where when you open a new tab, it has a whole list of things there to distract you from what you're trying to do. It feels a little bit like setting up Windows where you have to just like delete stuff and uninstall stuff. And I don't like that. I think like to mindfully use your phone so that it's a tool for you instead of just an endless distraction machine takes conscious effort. Oh, I had the same thought when I opened the App Store, that they're just like trying to throw things in your way to distract you. When I'm trying to download Dropbox and like Mail and Google Maps and the set of 10 applications that I know that I need, and they're like, have you seen all our crazy games, and would you like an Apple Arcade subscription so that you can play even more games unlimited, and here's the top app, it's TikTok, download TikTok, it's an essential app. Like, oh my god, calm down. It's a phone. I need it to like take notes, and I needed to bridge all my smart devices so that I can do time tracking, and I needed to take pictures, and I need to get a boarding pass on it. Anything else is something pulling me away from what I'm actually trying to get done.
I would also like to point out again that is nothing that a phone could do 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. Yeah.
It's incredible. Have you seen the page? There's a page of a really old Radio Shack ad where it's like 20 different products. It's advertising like a CD player and a fax machine and a digital camera, and
it's all
it's
just
like
a phone now.
And it's just, everything on the page your smartphone could do, and it's not like a special smartphone. It's any smartphone, any phone you get. It could be a $50 phone. It does all of those things. It can play music. It can be a MapQuest for you. It's incredible. We're living in the future.
I haven't seen that, but there is a video going around Twitter, which is like the desktop of 1950s or whatever, and then it sort of fast forwards in time, and then as things get invented, it removes things from the desktop until it's just like a computer and a phone. That's like it.
Amazing. I forget that sometimes, but just the worst phone is would be the most amazing piece of technology ever, like 15 years ago. Yeah, really cool. Chris, that's all I got.
That's all I got.